What an insane week this has been for the US economy. Yes, it is finally here. Find out why experts say a US recession is now more likely than ever in 2022. All of us could have predicted it. For the first time in 14 years, McDonald's has hiked the price of their cheeseburgers. A negative 0.9% second quarter advance estimate was released on Thursday, confirming that the recession has arrived. For the most part, this is not a shocker. Ironically, we can't really be in a recession if the very definition of a recession is changed. So, exactly why is it that White House officials are trying to redefine recession as we know it? While not entirely surprising, the government's updated definition was purposely left open-ended and doesn't clearly define a true recession. The new definition offered by the White House is only partially accurate and may even be deceptive, as it provides far more information than we actually need. Using this technique, the definition appears more optimistic and promising than it really is. Economic experts at Nomura Holdings Incorporated believe that in 2022, the US economy will enter a mild recession as the Federal Reserve raises interest rates in an effort to control rising prices. Global economic prospects have dimmed as energy and food supply disruptions have gotten worse, consumer sentiment has soured, and financial conditions are expected to tighten even further. An economic downturn in the fourth quarter of 2022 is more likely than not, say Nomura economists Aichi Amemiya and Robert Dent, given the weakening growth momentum and Fed's commitment to maintaining price stability. Economic contraction would be mitigated by excess consumer savings and individual balance sheets, but monetary and fiscal policy will be restrained by rising inflation, they said. Nomura's GDP growth forecast for this year has been decreased to 1.8% from 2.5% previously, while the prognosis for next year has been reduced by 1% from a growth rate of 1.3% previously. While Yellen was speaking, she warned that unacceptably high prices will likely persist for people into 2022 and predicted that the US economy would slow down as a result. It will be several years before the US economy returns to the central bank's 2% inflation target, according to Loretta Mester, president of the Federal Reserve Bank of Cleveland, in a separate statement Sunday. According to Nomura's analysts, the Fed's response to a downturn will be modest for the time being due to the likelihood of high monthly inflation through 2022. Despite the fact that they expect rate hikes to continue through 2023, they predict the final rate to be lower in February, at 3.50 to 3.75%, than the earlier forecast of 3.75 to 4.00% in March. There has been an intensive semantic dispute among economists, pundits, and political operators since statistics showing that the US economy has declined for 2 consecutive quarters was released. Despite efforts by the Biden administration and a wide range of observers to deny that the United States is in a recession, history shows that such denials are doomed to failure. The Bureau of Economic Analysis, or BEA, in Cambridge, Massachusetts, has just released new data showing that the US economy has now witnessed 2 consecutive quarters of real GDP decline. The figures have been adjusted for inflation, of course. As far as recessions go, that's what most people mean by the term. A recession in the United States can only be officially declared if the National Bureau of Economic Research, commonly referred to as NBER, thoroughly examines a variety of monthly macroeconomic data over extended periods of time. In light of the ferocity of the media coverage of this issue, one may assume that popular and government opinions frequently differ. However, this isn't the situation. Previous episodes of 2 or more consecutive quarters of negative real GDP growth prior to the current one have occurred 10 times since 1948, all of which corresponded to the NBER's final pronouncement of a recession. No false positives in the 2 consecutive quarters statistics since 1948. For 74 years, the National Bureau of Economic Research, also known as NBER, has reliably predicted a recession if 2 consecutive quarters of negative real GDP growth were observed. Overall, it appears the US economy could be heading for a recession within 1 year, according to the rising warnings from banks and economic experts, as financial markets have tumbled farther away from recent highs on Thursday. The job market and consumer spending remain strong, but rising borrowing costs for people and businesses after years of near-zero interest rates are raising concerns that a sharp retraction could occur. So far this year, the Federal Reserve has raised interest rates by 0.75 percentage points, and officials are indicating that further rises may be required to bring the economy down. Increased anxiety is being caused by the coronavirus outbreak as well as Russia's invasion of Ukraine. The Dow Jones Industrial Average had its worst day of the year on Wednesday, and financial markets plummeted again on Thursday. Wednesday's sell-off took out more than 4% of the S&P 500's value. This is the second time this year that the S&P 500 has entered bear market territory. Recession risks are high, uncomfortably high, and increasing, said Mark Zandi, chief economist of Moody's Analytics. There must be some pretty clever policy making and a bit of luck in order to avoid a downturn in the economy. Former Goldman Sachs CEO Lloyd Blankfein warned of a very, very high risk of recession. Wells Fargo CEO Charlie Scharf said there was no question that the US economy was headed toward a downturn, and former Fed Chair Ben Bernanke cautioned that the country could be poised for stagflation, a slowing economy combined with high inflation. As the Fed's commitment to maintain tightening monetary conditions is already taking its toll on interest rate-sensitive sectors, these worries are understandable. The pace of new home construction slowed down in April, according to the latest data. Demand for mortgages is dwindling. Profits and sales were down this week at some of the country's most prominent retailers, triggered by rising expenses and overstocking inventories, which was designed to prevent supply chain disruptions. On Tuesday, Walmart's shares fell more than 11%, the largest one-day fall in 35 years, according to the company. Target's stock fell 26% on Wednesday after the company reported a shocking 52% decline in quarterly profits, which officials blamed in part on a cooling in demand for expensive items like televisions, kitchen appliances, and outdoor furniture. "We expected a post-stimulus slowdown, but we weren't prepared for the degree of it," said Target CEO Brian Cornell on a conference call with investors on Wednesday. A wide range of constantly changing conditions, ranging from geopolitics to high and persistent inflation, is expressed by our guests when we speak with them. This week, Goldman Sachs lowered its second quarter US economic growth prediction to a pace of 2.5% annualized, citing rising costs and continuing disruptions in the supply chain. First quarter 2022 saw an unexpected decline of 1.4%, largely due to an imbalance in trade and decreased inventory purchases, although the economy rebounded in the second quarter of the year. Concerns about recession in Europe and China are dampening prospects for the United States economy. In addition, if interest rates rise and dollar investments become more attractive, the dollar's strength might reduce exports, increasing the likelihood of a technical recession in which the economy contracts for 2 consecutive quarters. In recent weeks, companies like Netflix and Peloton have announced layoffs because of concerns about the economy and shifts in customer spending habits caused by pandemics. Despite the recruiting freezes at Twitter and Meta, management at Amazon recently said that the firm was overstaffed following months of rapid hiring. In the most recent week, the number of Americans filing for unemployment benefits rose by 2,000 to 218,000, a 4-month high but still close to historic lows. Inflation, which has remained above 40-year highs, has become a major issue for both the economy and the administration of President Joe Biden. Food, energy, and housing costs are rising rapidly in the United States, which has a negative impact on household budgets and a bleak outlook on the economy. This week, gas prices touched an all-time high of $4.57 per gallon across the U.S. In the last year, the University of Michigan's Consumer Mood Index has shown a dramatic decline in Americans' opinions of their current circumstances and aspirations for the future. Despite the pessimistic outlook, Americans continue to blow their budgets wide open in all areas. In April, apparel, vehicles, and furniture sales all increased, adding to a 0.9% increase in overall retail sales, according to Commerce Department figures. Although there is instability abroad and high costs at the checkout stand, Bethan Bovino, chief U.S. economist for S&P Global, believes there is a 35% likelihood of recession in 1 year's time. The U.S. economy is holding up well near term. Businesses are still looking for new employees, and consumers are still spending money. However, there are a number of hurdles ahead. Moreover, it is debatable whether or not these Fed initiatives could also tip the apple cart. Even though she had previously expressed concern about stagflationary impacts, Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen now believes the Federal Reserve can keep inflation under control without triggering a recession. She did, however, admit that the ability to do so was not evident at this point. "I believe that a soft landing is possible. It's a combination of ability and chance. I hope so, but this is a very tough economic scenario," Yellen said to reporters in Germany, noting economic disruptions from the war and sanctions on Russia. "Things are moving fast. Not everything is as it seems." However, even if the US avoids a recession for the time being, some economists believe that the recent 8.3% increase in prices and the resulting supply and demand mismatches generated by the pandemic, as well as the government's response, could snowball into an even more serious issue in the future. Consumers are spending like crazy, firms will need to replenish their inventory, and a lot of people are still streaming back into the job market, said Jason Furman, an economics professor at Harvard University who served as an advisor during the Obama administration. Although this raises my concern for the next year to a year and a half, it could imply that the Fed needs to hike rates even further, which could lead to an even deeper recession in the future. According to Zandy, a Moody's analyst, supply chain snarls and the situation in Ukraine have contributed to the looming threat of an economic collapse. The likelihood of a US recession within the next 24 months has risen to 50%, according to him. In his words, "We're going very, very close to the brink. We don't yet know how hard the housing market will crash, but it's definitely coming." There was a decline in single-family home construction in April. The Census Bureau and the Department of Housing and Urban Development issued data this week showing that building permits, which give a window into future construction, also decreased. Home builder sentiment plummeted to its lowest level in 2 years in May, Grant Thornton economist Yelena Malayev wrote in an analyst note. Home buying season is expected to be less active this year since builders are observing a decrease in foot traffic and expecting a lower number of sales. There is already a noticeable thaw in the economy. Many major mortgage lenders, such as Wells Fargo and Better.com, have let off thousands of employees in recent weeks due to a drop in demand for house loans and refinancing. Mortgage lender Kevin Recher in Alexandria, Virginia, said that potential house buyers in the area are feeling apprehensive. Rates began to rise in December of last year, which coincided with a decline in refinances. Rising mortgage rates and sky-high home prices have discouraged purchasers since then, he added. The 30-year fixed-rate mortgage now costs 5.3%, roughly double what it did in early 2021. As many as 3 clients had cold feet and dropped out of contracts in the last 2 weeks, according to the company's director of business development. Recher, president of First Meridian Mortgage, remarked, "There is an enormous sense of apprehension out there. However, it's unusual for people to obtain contracts and then walk away from them," he says. Additionally, several types of small businesses report that clients are cutting down on their spending due to the increasing cost of goods and services. A glass repair business owner in Marion, Iowa, says that while homeowners are still paying for essentials like broken windows, they're rethinking spending on luxuries like custom showers because of the economic downturn. It has now gotten to the point where middle-class consumers are beginning to hesitate, Mulherin added. In order to save money, they're receiving an estimate, and then simply delaying it until a better time when they can afford it. Tell us, what do you think? Are elevated prices and unanchored price expectations going to put a damper in economic growth? Will the Federal Reserve continue to hike up interest rates well into the year 2023? What's one way you've personally felt the impact of the recession? Share your honest thoughts in the comments section below. To support our channel and stay in the loop of future updates, be sure to subscribe, click that like button, and hit the notification bell.